All right, public hearing, that's the first thing.
Yes.
What I read. Public hearing of the 2020 tax levy. A quorum being present, the first order of business is to hold a public hearing on the 2020 tax levy. Due notice has been given of the public hearing on the 2020 tax levy, and all other statutory requirements preliminary to the holding of such public hearing have been complied with. The proposed tax levy was first presented at the November board meeting. Dr. Smetana and Dr. Skinkis will present the 2020 levy and answer any questions from the board. Dr. Skinkis, Dr. Smetana.
Thank you, Mr. Smithing. Historically, we always do a public hearing on the levy. We are not asking for a tax increase greater than 5%. In Illinois, statute is anything greater than 5% need to do a public hearing. However, in order to be transparent, we still conduct a public hearing to do our general tax levy, just to make sure the public is clear on what we're requesting and what we anticipate in receiving. Ms. Smetana, proceed.
As discussed, the tax levy was initially presented to the board on November 10th. Since then, the Finance Advisory Council also met on November 16th to review the tax levy. No changes have been made since the last meeting. As many of you know, District 208 is in a tax cap district, which is capped by the Consumer Price Index for the levy year of 2020. This year's CPI figure used for the levy is 2.3%. So as Dr. Skinka said, we levy 4.95% in order to capture as much money we can on any new property, but all of the existing property is capped at 2.3%. I'd like to take a brief minute to review some important items in the levy. So on board book page 4, you'll see the chart that I've previously presented, and I'd like to take a minute just to go over the 3 gray columns. Column F is the extension from last year with the 3% loss factor that's annually added in by Cook County. This column is in gray because it's the actual money that we were entitled to receive under the 2019 levy. It doesn't mean we received all that money, but that was the money that we are entitled to receive. Column K is the levy, or the amount of money that we're asking for this year from Cook County. Again, we ask for 4.95%, even though we know we're capped at CPI, just so we can capture that amount on any new property. And then column M is our realistic picture of new money for next year, which is why it is highlighted in gray. This amount, because I know it's hard to read, in our operating funds is $464,219. So this represents the 2.3% levy along with the loss factor that the county adds to our final levy. However, it's important as we talk about new money that this is the money, again, that we're entitled to receive. It doesn't mean that we actually receive this money. So Marianne, if you could go to board book page 8. You'll see I included some historical information for the board on our property tax collection rate.
Marianne, could you make that a little bigger so maybe some people in the audience can see that as well?
So there's a 3-year average for our tax collection rate as well as a 10-year average. Both are similar. The 10-year average is 98.45%. So in a normal school year, we budget for 99% property tax collection. This year, due to COVID, we budgeted property tax collection to be at 97%. However, we haven't reached what we budgeted for. So just looking at our August or our fall collection, or that second collection, we're still chasing $279,718. And if this collection rate, which is approximately around 94%, if this collection rate continues at the end of the year, we will still be short $596,141 in revenue in our operating funds. So I wanted to call this to the attention of the board, because just because we're saying we're getting this additional money doesn't mean that's actually what the district collects. So I think that's important to understand.
We're assuming that these tax collections, just because people defaulting on property taxes or county submissions or collection, correct?
Yeah, it's the same. It's the same rate that we experienced in August. So certainly in March it could be higher, but it also could be lower. So forecasting to kind of just keeping the same rate, that's what
And so the
resulting in
the
district
590, so the 596 is, just so the board understands this, I want to make sure, we already budgeted less of a collection this year. So
Correct.
part of our
By-
deficit was we were only assuming 97% of taxes would be collected.
Correct. We already lowered the budget by about $400,000 in revenue. That's that $1 million figure that's next to that almost $600,000 figure.
So the 596 is on top of that, correct?
No. One, that's total.
Not the million, I'm talking, that's 596 we're chasing. So
For
we're
this
coming
year's
in
budget,
closer to
yes.
94 and 95, not the 97 we budgeted.
Correct.
So basically, we're 600,000 behind budget and revenue.
Correct.
I can understand that, right? That means whatever we budgeted, we gotta add $600,000 to it because we're not gonna get the revenue,
Well, and the budget deficit was already,
$2 million.
1.6.
I stand corrected, $1.6 million.
Okay.
Yes, so I also bring it to the attention of the board, not only for this year, chasing $600,000 in revenue, but also property tax collection is roughly about 80% of our revenue that we receive each year. And so this will have an impact on the future as well. That's also why I included the historical tax rate, so you can see, from the economy in, 2008, 2009, it had a significant impact all the way until the 2012 levy. So I think that's important for the board to know as well.
So you had almost like 2 recovery years.
Correct.
Okay.
no, I think that's really important to point out the 2011 recovery, and I know 10 years is a very good historic snapshot, but if we went back to 07, 08, I think you're probably going to see even a less percentage collection, because that was the property, that was the real estate boom at that point.
I can go back
No.
further and provide that for the
I don't
board,
think
but I don't
it's
have it.
necessary. I just think, looking at this, it's not good news, right? And I think we need to be aware that it's not good news.
So I think, to Deanna's point, in 2011 is when we had the referendum, because we were in a big hole, and it failed, and we had some tough years ahead. So,
Okay, any other questions on the levy? Kristen, is there anything else you want to highlight? So technically, if we were to get CPI next year, we'd be looking at an additional increase of about $464,000 in our operating funds, and that's if we receive 100% of tax collection.
Correct.
Okay.
So if the collection rate continues at the rate that it's currently at, I don't anticipate receiving a whole lot of new money for next year.
When is the last time we received money from the county?
We received you'll see in my financial report later, we received, I think, $13,000 in November.
So it's definitely trickled down to,
Yes. October was the last, since
Okay.
that was the due date, that was the last major collection that we received.
it doesn't even pay for the textbook.
nothing new.
Kristen,
State
and if we
Illinois,
look at the
nothing.
if we look at your levy, the operating funds approximately are about 21.5.
Yes, somewhere around
So
there,
every
depending
1% is roughly 210,000.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, if there's no other questions, Wes, you can open up for comments on the levy.
Okay, the meeting is now open for public discussion regarding the levy. We will get to other comments in a bit. And all persons there to be heard. Someone like to talk about the tax levy? No, it's fun and exciting. Okay. Then seeing that there are no further comments from the public, I now declare the public hearing of the 2020 tax levy completed, and the regular meeting will proceed. Okay.